how's it going? It's Grant with the Garden of Eater.
And Shelby.
And today, we're going to talk about why are my shrimp dying? Not our shrimp in particular, but why are your shrimp dying? Or why could they possibly die, passed away? So we'll be answering all of those questions tonight. So feel free to drop those questions in. I'll get them as I can. But I'm pretty much going to go everything from shipping to not doing water changes and everything in between, all the reasons why your shrimp could possibly be dying. I'm sure I'm going to miss some of them, like nuclear explosion and stuff like that, but I'm going to go over all the common ones that end up coming across in questions and stuff like that throughout the week and stuff like that, especially the ones that are most common. So started off with shipping. Basically, there's not many ways that shrimp can die in shipping. It's basically going to be running out of oxygen or temperature swings. Those are the two things that are going to kill your shrimp during transit. The other possible way is possibly getting smushed, smashed, the bags broken and stuff like that. The shrimp could possibly get stuck in the corner of a bag and get smushed or something like that. And that is one possible way. But for us, we wrap the bags in newspaper. That not only helps them with getting smushed or the bags popping or anything like that, but it also helps keep the temperature nice and constant. And also, with shipping long range, we pack as much water as we can, or if we're doing caridina, we ship with as much oxygen in the bags as we possibly can. That way the shrimp don't run out of oxygen. They can actually live in those bags for up to 3 weeks. And then, of course, to prevent the smashing, we don't use styrofoam or anything like that. Gives the box some crumple zones, so that way if there is any accidents through the sorting machine, they don't get ripped open and smushed and anything like that. So shipping is fairly easy with shrimp. We have less than 1% dead on arrival rate. For the majority of it, it's because somebody left them on their porch too long, and it's one of those times where in Florida it's like 80 degrees, and they bought the shrimp in Washington, and it's like 30 degrees there. So being in transit for too long, too many shrimp in the bag, those can all be issues. And also, one of the pro tips before shipping is make sure you do water changes on your tank before you ship out. That way the water is as pristine as possible. It's clean, not dirty. It's not going to foul up and cause any issues with the shrimp in transit. Next off is acclimation. There are the people that just do the quick plop and drop. They remove the shrimp out of the bags with the net. They don't add any of the water, or some of them might even add the tank water or the bag water into the tank. We never recommend doing that, but there are people that skip the whole acclimation process, and with shrimp, that can be a little shocking and cause some issues, even death. One of the main reasons is like temperature swings. If the shrimp are going from 70 to 75 or 80 down to 72 or something like that, any more than like 5 degrees of a temperature shift can really affect the shrimp and definitely cause some deaths.
Vibes coming in here with $1.99. I have the cup.
You have the cup. I gave the better cup to Shelby.
That is a beautiful front stuff. Gotta have it. Thanks for the $1.99 super chat. Says, let's give Grant and Shelby some love and a like. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Hope you're doing all right this week, Vibes. Back to acclimation, the temperature swings. Anything over like 5 degrees can definitely cause some issues. So the safest way to acclimate your shrimp is to do the drip acclimation. If they're not in a breather bag and you get the poly bags with neocaridina, you can float the bags and then plop and drop. That is going to be less risky than just straight off the rip plopping and dropping. The only time I recommend plop and drop is if there's like half the bag is DOA and you don't want to rinse any of that ammonia in the water affecting any of the living shrimp. Then, of course, remove the living ones, throw them right into a container with fresh tank water, and that's going to be your best chance for survival with them. But everything else should get drip acclimated, depending on the difference in temperatures, how far you traveled, and stuff like that. If you just went and drove 30 minutes to your buddy's house and got some shrimp and came home, a 30-minute drip acclimation with like a 1 drip per second is more than enough. However, if they're in transit, I usually recommend a 1 hour drip. I don't really recommend doing anything over 2 hours. It's kind of like overkill. It's not really needed. And the shrimp at that point would actually do better off in the tank with the large volume of water and little areas for them to go off, hide, and kind of de-stress. I don't know if they have like little tiny heart attacks or strokes or what they possibly do. We're not doing shrimp autopsies over here. But
Yeah.
no. But every time you come over to the container and it's like that whole Toy Story, like they don't do that. They go and freak out and jump around and they try to get somewhere where they can hide, but in that acclimation cup or bucket, they can't really do that. So it just kind of stresses them out every time you go over there to check on them. So getting them in the tank the fastest you can, with matching the parameters as quickly as possible on that one drip per second rate is going to do you just right. And then, of course, once they're in the tank, all those little places for them to hide, you're going to lose sight of them rather quickly. Give them a good week or so before you worry about them being dead or anything like that. Of course, I got another issue. We'll talk about that later. But as long as your tank's right and everything like that, you could possibly go a whole week without seeing more than 1 or 2 shrimp at a time.
My phone's not working. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So don't be paranoid. This is also the same with baby shrimp. If you get any babies, any hatching eggs or anything like that, and you can't see anything, don't really worry about it for 1 or 2 weeks. The babies will take some time to grow up. Not everybody has really good eyesight, and they also want to hide and hold on to what they can and eat the food and the little nooks and crannies throughout the tank to stay away from predators, and you being one of the predators.
Welcome, Easy V Rider, to the YouTube team. Here's your video. Thank you for becoming a member. Just a quick shout out and a reminder to everybody who is a YouTube member, you do get a free sticker. We never have that ready and available.
It should be here.
No, it's over by the printer now.
Oh.
So email us at thegardenofeater@gmail.com, EDER, to get your sticker. Just include your YouTube name and your address so that we can mail out your discount code and your sticker.
The discount code is a 10% off to our website, tgoeshrimp.com. So your support can be a little discount at your cart getting some new shrimp. But you got to go run and do something. I can tackle some things on the list.
And I think he's going for the Amish look, Brandon. He might just fit in a couple of the places we go to. It seems to be really heavily Amish up north, wherever we travel for a fish show. I don't know what it is.
No, we go.
The zoo. I mean, everywhere we went, we had a group of Amish people.
There's Amish in Florida.
In Florida. There was even Florida. Like, that's crazy.
All right. So we're going to go through the next one, and that's just going to be parameters. Let's say you acclimated your tank. You got the shrimp in there. They're all running around. They're acting frantic. They might be zigzagging, going up to the top of the tank, and then like floating down on their backs. If you acclimated them, or if the shrimp arrived to your house and all of them are alive, and then through acclimation they're starting to really act real funny and stuff like that, kind of like when they touch the floor, like the floor might be lava or the walls or something like that. You really got to keep an eye on them, because if they were fine in acclimation or fine in shipping, and then all of a sudden through acclimation or once you get them into your tank, they're starting to act lethargic and do all these weird things, you might have something wrong with your parameters. Now, depending on the type of shrimp, there is a wide range of parameters that you can take with certain different types of shrimp. Others, though, they are very finicky. They need exactly a certain kind of pH, a certain kind of KH, or else they're not going to molt or anything like that. So you definitely got to be aware of what shrimp you're getting and what the ideal parameters are, because some shrimp will live in certain parameters, but they're not going to thrive. They're not going to breed. And you got to be careful out there, because not everybody wants you breeding shrimp. It's going to cut into their profits and stuff like that. But like, there's enough of a market out there for homebred shrimp that the demand is there. And if you're breeding, you're going to have a slight edge over the competition that's not breeding. So just making it through and figuring out exactly what parameters you should run your tank at is going to help. But there's also quite a few things in the tank that you possibly didn't know could be toxic to shrimp and stuff like that. One of the things is copper. I don't really want to talk too much about that, but there is certain type of root tabs and other things like that you throw into the tank, and that is going to be kind of toxic to the shrimp. Maybe over time, enough of them in the tank or something like that. It's not really known what levels of copper or anything like that can really affect shrimp, but if you planted the tank heavily before you added the tank, you cycled it properly and everything like that, you added the shrimp in there, and then the copper started leaching after water changes or something like that, it could definitely come out. Those could be hidden in your fertilizers as well, so you definitely want to make sure there isn't any copper in the water, just to be safe. It might not be affecting adult shrimp or anything like that, but that little bit of copper in the water could be the difference between an 80% survival rate for babies or a 60 or 40%. So one way or another, I like to avoid it at all costs. But for like caridina shrimp, you don't really want cereus stone or limestone or anything like that. That can cause parameter swings, like TDS, GH, and KH can fluctuate as well as those rocks break down in the water. They can release other things that might not be an issue right away, but over time can cause a problem. Say you got some brand new shrimp, you did a water change, and tested the pH, everything's good, so you're going to throw it in the tank. Well, those rocks didn't have enough time to buffer the water, fight against the active substrate yet. You can cause some issues down the road. So definitely getting your parameters in check is going to be prime beforehand. That way, once you get your shrimp and everything's good after that, you just have to keep everything stable and consistent. And as long as nothing changes, you do your water changes, everything like that. Shrimp keeping is really that easy, and everything will do fine. They'll breed and do well. As long as your parameters and everything's right, you've done your research. Temperature swings are one of the bigger issues with shrimp. I mentioned it with shipping. Anything over like 5-degree temp swing is going to cause some issues. Sometimes in Florida, it can be 40 degrees in the morning. We're sending the kids to school. They've got sweatpants and jackets on, and then they get off the bus and they can't wait to get home and put on cooler clothes because it's gotten up to 70, 80 degrees. So if you're not keeping AC on in the house or the windows open or something like that, and your house's temperature swinging a lot, your tanks aren't going to swing temperature quite as fast as the ambient air outside and stuff like that, but they will for sure. 4 or 5 degrees throughout the day can cause some issues. A couple of years ago, we had a hurricane come through Florida. It took our power out for 21 hours. In that time, our AC wasn't running. The next day after the hurricane was like one of the hottest days for us. Maybe it was just because we didn't have AC in the house, but I think on record for the heat index and stuff like that, it was one of the hotter days of the year, and our tanks did get up to 84 degrees. Now, mind you, most of the time our tanks stay at 72 throughout the house, but it's gotten to the point where without AC, they're going to start climbing 21 hours into it. Our tanks hit 84 degrees. We had 155 tanks at the time. Out of those 155, 5 of them had issues. And the only issue that possibly could have been is that temperature swing. And we had generator running air to all the pumps and stuff like that. However, the temperature, you can't run a generator, or we couldn't run our generator to power our AC to cool down our entire house. So those 5 tanks that had issues, they didn't make it. However, every single female in the house that wasn't pregnant was pregnant the next day. Even the smaller ones at 1 centimeter. Shelby, give me a break. Tell the people about the Amazon Research Center and their raffle.
I don't know anything about the raffle. Just kidding. I'm kidding. So the Amazon Research Center is offering, it's $2,000, I believe. Quote me if I'm wrong, Dr. Anthony, and I'm sorry if I am.
No, it's $2,000.
It's $2,000
towards your airfare.
So you got to buy raffle tickets, which is on the link that Crypt Keeper so lovely shared with all of you. So, you know, I mean, take a shot. You'll get to go to Peru and go collecting, and then they provide meals, right?
I don't know.
It's different.
Dr. Anthony will
It's
have to
probably the
provide
2,000,
that. I'm sure they
yeah.
provide for 1 week. I think it's all expenses are covered. You know, within the research center. He might take you collecting. I'm not sure what that all entitles, but basically $50 for your raffle ticket, $2,000 worth of airfare covered, and you get to go to Peru. So sounds like an amazing time. I would save the ticket until the aquarium is finished, so you get to see all that. I'm excited. That's what I think we're going to hold out for. Or we could help build it. I don't know. We got to find a sitter for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then you guys could go there on your own with buying one of the raffle tickets for only $50. So it wouldn't be $4,000 or whatever it would cost you to go there on your own.
Next week, we should probably just have them come up and explain it a little bit better. Said open to anyone in the world. Only thing we don't cover is your alcohol.
Covers ayahuasca, though. He told me that. No, he doesn't.
Stop.
I'm joking. All right. So, not just temperature swings are they not the only ones you got to worry about. You also have to worry about your total dissolved solids, your GH, and stuff like that climbing, raising too high, making the water too hard for your shrimp to molt. This could happen with just simple evaporation. If you don't keep a lid on your tank, or if you're not topping off with just straight RO water, you're just pouring in tap water on top of tap water, and then you're just stacking on minerals on top of minerals. And before you know it, your water went from 240 total dissolved solids to 800 to 1,000. And now your shrimp aren't liking it too much and you're having some issues. And it's really pretty drastic to go that high down to proper levels with a good water change. You can do it, but you know it is risky. You want to make the slightest adjustments as possible. The best way to do this is just avoid it altogether. Throw a lid on your tank or top off your tank with just straight RO water.
Stupid ass. I said I had no power for 3 days. Is that why one of my shrimp keep dying? What is the minimum temperature for Neo? I lost about 20 blue diamonds. I think they got too cold. I don't think the oxygen caused them to die.
So it could be the oxygen in the tank causing them to die. If you don't have any lights on the tank and you have a bunch of plants, the one issue with plants in darkness is they actually will absorb some of the oxygen. So if you had a very nice clean tank with a bunch of shrimp and no oxygen for 3 days, that possibly could be it. I wouldn't worry too much about temperature, considering just this year or the beginning of the winter, we had 27-degree temperatures in our shrimp ponds outside for the Neocaridina. So I don't know how quickly your temperatures change inside the house or anything like that. But I do know you have a good amount of plants in the tank, from what I believe. Maybe I don't know that, but I would say oxygen.
And Rick asks, is cherry shrimp hard to keep?
No, cherry shrimp are one of the easiest shrimp to keep. If you just listen to what we talk about today, just don't do any of the wrong things, and you'll be fine.
One more question before we get back to the topic. What does it mean when Neo eggs are black? The shrimp is still fanning them, though.
I've never seen black eggs. I don't know how dark the eggs might be. It might just be really, really brown. I don't know what kind of Neocaridina shrimp you have, but say you have a Skittles tank, for instance. You could end up with wilds, and the wilds would be way darker eggs than, say, the yellow Neocaridina eggs usually carry.
More brown, just not yellow.
Yeah, brown is more common. With just, say, red cherries, I've seen green, I've seen blue, yellow, brown. I want to say like a maroonish color, but I don't know. I know for sure I've seen maroon red wine eggs, but cherries and wild types, I would say they're just a mix, and you're going to get some really darker brown, or you can even get blacks from crossing Neocaridinas. They're going to be a wild type black. Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. All right. So, talked about parameter swings. Now let's dive into tank mates. I'll get this question all the time, and I think somebody posted this just recently. They left like a 1-star review on somebody's page, and I feel so bad for them because they got not the person that got the shrimp, the person that got the 1-star review. Because the person that got the shrimp threw them in a tank with angelfish, and they didn't know that the angelfish were going to eat the shrimp. So whatever can fit in a fish's mouth will be food, whether it's a shrimp, a snail, or as long as snails are on the diet. But you take the shell off the snail, it's on the diet. And then even fish, little small fish fits in a fish's mouth. It's food for other fish. So you definitely got to be careful with what you're putting in, what you're putting them in with. The Neocaridina shrimp that we send out, for instance, are all about 1 centimeter in size. That is a perfect snack, really, if you want to think of it, for a full-size male guppy or female guppy. Like, they will go to town on 12, a 12-pack of shrimp, no problem. Then,
Shrimp 20 pack of shrimp.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, no problem. All right, with you threw me off here. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. With the shrimp, you just got to be very careful on what tank mates you're adding them with. I've gone over tank mates several different times. The smaller the fish, the better. But it is. Oh, I got where I was going. It's best to start the tank off with the shrimp first and then add the fish later. But if you do already have a well-established Endler's tank or something like that, and you want to add some red cherry shrimp or something, do it at nighttime. Turn off all the lights. Make sure that the fish have the least possible chance of seeing the shrimp. Because if you add them in during the day and they're already coming to the front of the tank because they think you're adding in food, well, guess what? The fish are going to think that the shrimp are going to be food. Do it at nighttime. They're not really sleeping, but put them in there. And then when you turn on the lights next day, they're just going to be like, oh, hello. You know what I mean? They're just going to talk and have a good time. They're not going to be like, oh, well, when's the food come around here, and then, they'll talk back and forth like that and not eat each other. So do it at nighttime. You'll have better results. It's still risky business. I don't recommend doing it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. You can only have so many tanks. I'm getting really scratchy throat. You're not having enough questions for me tonight.
No, that's not my fault.
It's 100% your fault. You need to rally the troops. Or are you 25 minutes in? Oh. Okay. So, this leads me to my number one. No, I'll save that for next. Then we got cycling. Say you just bought your shrimp and you throw them into a tank, and you've never ran the tank. You ordered the shrimp, went to Petco that day, got everything for your tank, and then they came a couple days later in the mail. You threw the shrimp right in the tank. Don't expect them to do very well. You need to cycle the tank for at least 30 days to establish a thick layer of biofilm throughout the entire tank. The more surface area they have, the better it is. The more little plants you have in the tank, the more rocks or decorations and stuff like that, the more surface area you're going to have. That's all going to provide little nooks and crannies for biofilm to grow, as well as little tiny microorganisms that the shrimp are going to munch on at all times. You can't really starve shrimp when you want to ship them. I guess you could take them and put them into a container with absolutely no light on it at all, dark, before you ship them out. But I just think that's going to stress them out. If you have them in a container with any type of light at all, you're going to start growing biofilm within an hour, and the shrimp are going to eat that. And yeah, you don't try to starve the shrimp. Just keep them in the tank and send them out when they're nice and healthy. So
I keep messing the screen up tonight. Thank you so much, DJ Owen, for the $2 super chat. Says, are Hillstream loaches a bad idea for your shrimp?
So they would be a bad idea for like caridina shrimp and stuff like that. But like, say if I wanted to breed Hillstream loaches, I would probably set up a nice high flow tank with a lot of flat bottom rocks and stuff like that. But I'd probably get a nice colony of shrimp going in the tank for them to nibble on and stuff like that. Maybe activate some like trigger system that'll get them breeding a little bit or something like that. But I wouldn't really put any expensive shrimp with them. They will, if the Hillstream loach is any bigger than 3 inches, it will eat a shrimp if you put any food in there or anything like that. They'll definitely get a nibble on some of your shrimp. Also, like the high flow tank for the Hillstreams, the filter block and guard that you're going to use to keep the baby shrimp out of that is probably going to clog up your flow or reduce your rate and something like that. So the two breeding shrimp and a Hillstream loach tank setup, the two of those really don't mix really well for me. So, but do it if that's what you want to do. It's okay, DJ. You can go for it.
Oh.
Did we give him his thing?
No. Thank you.
So back to the cycling of the tank. You want to give it a good 30 days. Now, I'm gonna like set this in stone for you guys. You're gonna hear it now the first time, but I'm going to like make this like my slogan. With shrimp keeping, you want to play the marathon game. You don't want to make it a sprint. You don't want to rush it and get the job done as fast as you can. With shrimp breeding, if you're looking to go out there and make as much money as you possibly can as fast as you can, there's way better ways to do it. But if you want to just have some fun, relax, build up some numbers, get rid of some ugly ones every now and then you want to make the jump and start selling shrimp and stuff like that, if you play it as a marathon, you're going to be a lot happier. It's going to be a lot less stressful and stuff like that. You might not be able to quit your job in 1 to 2 years, but it's definitely doable as a side job. But you don't want to rush anything. Taking shortcuts or doing anything like that, there's no snake oil or magic powder that you're going to be able to dump in your tank that's going to do anything that's better than Father Time. That is going to be the number one ingredient for your tank. Just let it season and cook for a good 30 days, and then add the shrimp to it, and you'll have the best gumbo ever. That's how you do it. So,
What?
I gotta make sure she's listening every now and then. All right.
Oh, I'm struggling tonight.
Yeah, she's got our tree in the front of her house is just dumping pollen like crazy. We raked the yard of all the leaves the other day because it was like just littering the entire neighborhood and felt bad. So we took care of our dirty tree mess, but Shelby's still paying for it 2 days later. And yeah, just cycle your tank for 30 days and stay away from pollinated trees. Any questions? I'm done.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions.
All right.
Have you ever seen a strong line of cherry shrimp with a backline? I set up a tank recently to try and get the cherry backline going. Do you think it will be hard?
So the backline itself is quite dominant. With cherry shrimp, though, it doesn't seem to come out as quickly as, like, say, the yellow neocaridinas. With yellow neos, at like 2 centimeters, sometimes you can see a complete backline. At 1 centimeter, you can see a little kind of backline forming on the head and stuff like that. However, with red cherries, I've had lines go for 3 years where I didn't think there was any backlines going to pop out of them. And then all of my oldest adults started getting backlines through the end of their season or years, basically. They take just a lot longer to develop it. We've got some blues also forming it. Maybe they're just my oldest blues, and that's why it's got a backline. I don't know. I do know with yellows that it's quite dominant. If you can get one yellow to breed with a backline, with a yellow that doesn't have a backline, 99% of the babies are going to come out with a backline. So it's very hard gene to take away if it's there. It's just been a while since anybody's really wanted to play with lines or anything like that. And it's really like an opinion on whether people like it or not. And I just think where they're breeding them and mass producing, that they just don't care whether it has a backline or not. That's why you just get a good mix with most batches of shrimp most of the time.
You confused someone earlier.
I'm sorry.
Travis is asking, new question, but why is pollen bad for shrimp? He meant pollen bad for me, not shrimp. He was referring to my terrible allergies that 2 days later I'm still wheezing and really congested. So next question, were you done with that one?
I think so.
And then Snaptight was asking, what 2 colors of Neos, I asked, that you can have the most fun with?
The most fun is hands down going to be chocolates and greens. Chocolates, you're going to get a bunch of different colors. And what's your definition of fun? Is fun culling, or is fun, stuff popping out and stuff like that?
Obviously.
If you like catching shrimp and culling is your thing, then chocolates is awesome. If you just like seeing a bunch of different shrimp pop up in your tank, then chocolates is awesome. Then the next one is going to be the green jades, just because there's so many different shades of green that come out of it, and green's my favorite color, so that to me is the most fun. I could focus on backline, I can focus on lime green, I can focus on dark green. Every now and then some blues come out. Those are my 2 goes. What about you, Shelby?
Me? It would just create a lot of coals, but I would personally do orange and greens together. But it's going to be a lot of coals. Who knows if anything would come out of them, but that's what I would want to do. That's the whole fun of doing any different color shrimp together. It's most likely going to be mostly wild, so hopefully you have a shrimp tank or something to kind of feed them, fish tank to feed them to, or a separate cool tank. But that's the most fun, is trying to create something new.
All right, back to the discussion. now let's say, oh, Grant, I messed up. I had already put an order in. I set up the tank and everything the way you told me not to. I didn't cycle it for 30 days. But now I've got to feed the shrimp because I can't wait a week. The shrimp aren't going to have enough biofilm to supplement them. I've got to add in foods to the tank. Well, you're going to be chasing that fine line of too much ammonia in the tank and nitrates and nitrites and stuff like that. I almost said nitrates again and immediately thought of Dr. Anthony calling me out on it last week. But, having too much food in the tank is going to raise those certain levels, and those are going to be kind of toxic for the shrimp. They come from the wild. Well, these ones didn't, but in nature, the wild types of the shrimp that we hybridize and mutate and stuff like that, they come from sources of water where it's constantly being replenished. In those streams and stuff like that, the water is very, very clean, and we've kind of mimicked that in our breeding tank. So we've got zero ammonia, zero nits, and with that, you've got really healthy shrimp. Without a cycle tank, it's very hard to achieve that. So you're always constantly going to be fighting and walking that fine line of feeding the shrimp properly, but not taking the cycle and causing a crash in the tank.
Ready for another question?
Yeah.
John Thomas asks, caridina and tigers, they are neoparameter bred. Can you put them in a tank together and would they breed?
So, caridina and tigers. Caridina is a tiger. So, the tiger shrimp would breed with most caridina. Chances are the caridina that you're bringing in, unless it's a crystal shrimp, already has the tiger genetics in it. So, if you put them in a tank with neocaridina parameters, your caridina, I don't know what kind of caridina you're getting that are bred in neocaridina parameters, but it's mostly all tigers. So chances are that they'll breed together, unless you're getting like a raccoon tiger that won't breed with like an orange-eyed blue tiger or like Stardust or something like that. All right, but let us know what kind of caridina shrimp it actually is, and then I can answer that a lot easier for you. All right, so with a properly cycled tank, you still want to avoid overfeeding. It's just a lot easier to do with a tank that hasn't been cycled. You overfeed at all, and it's going to crash your tank. However, with a nice cycled tank, you got a ton of plant life in the tank and stuff like that. There is more room to overfeed, but you want to avoid feeding more food than the shrimp can eat in the first 3 hours. Anything after that, you want to remove that food. Then just take note of it next time. Maybe wait an extra day before you feed, or reduce the amount of food that you fed to that colony. Wait for the colony to grow before you start to bump up the amount of food that you're feeding. Generally speaking, I like all the food to be gone within the first hour, and still feel like I fed them enough. There are certain foods like snowflake and barley pellets where it's just going to stay in the tank for a lot longer. That's okay. They don't really pollute up the water or anything like that. But like the shrimp dinner pads, the shrimp NV complete and stuff like that, after 3 hours, or if you wake up the next day and there's still food in the tank, you definitely want to get that out of there. That way it doesn't pollute anything. Dr. Anthony, you know how much money I'm saving for Shelby's fish by not trimming up this thing? All right, next one.
Are you going to talk about underfeeding? Could be an issue.
Underfeeding could also be an issue. Look at Shelby; she's got her own mind as well. Over here.
That hurt. But yeah, underfeeding could be an issue in any tank. If you're not feeding them enough, they will, especially buried females, could either get preyed upon by hungry males, or say you have a freshly molted shrimp. Most likely, if you're not feeding enough, that's when you'll see a nice, beautiful, freshly molted shrimp being ate by the other ones.
They
So
go
it
after
does
the
happen.
weak ones.
Yeah.
So if they're sick and on their way out or anything like that, they're going to get picked off first. And molting, they're super squishy. It's like the soft shell crabs. It's because they just molted and they pulled them out of the water. And they're so squishy that some of them can't even hold right, or walk or hold any, or certainly not pinch once you pull them out of the water.
Mario asks, is there a significant difference in breeding shrimp in tanks versus outdoor totes?
The sun does some amazing things for neocaridina shrimp. The color and everything like that, they do gain a little bit bigger in size. However, I can breed certain types of shrimp just as fast inside as I can outside. Inside, in tanks, you have the advantage of being able to see the ugly ones and removing those. So breeding quality outside in the ponds is not as easy. That's why we do like 175-gallon tubs and not 400-gallon vats or anything like that some of the bigger farms do. But certainly more water volume that you have, the easier it is to keep your water parameters constant. So it didn't matter if you have them inside or outside. Just us having the totes outside and bigger volumes of water makes it a lot easier for us to just keep things regular, constant, stable. And that's what the shrimp really want in order for them to breed. Because even if it's not ideal parameters at what you're keeping them at, if you can get them to breed one generation, that next generation is going to do better in your parameters. And then the next generation after that's going to do even better until you just get them thriving and that's their parameters. And then other people are going to have to match the breeder yourself, your parameters. But generally speaking, you want to do what's easiest for you. And what's consistent for us is tap water, using a little bit of prime to take that chlorine out of the water, and then we're able to just do water changes and keep up with everything. 400 tanks, 50. I almost said 500 ponds. It's only 50, and we're able to keep up with that and still make the house good enough for Master Fish Breeder Dean coming this weekend to the Pasco Aquarium Club. If you're anywhere near Pasco in Florida, you're definitely not going to want to miss the Pasco Aquatic Clubs. They got some great speakers. I thought you'd have another one for me.
No.
All right. Now, this was one Shelby put on the list as well. Cross-contamination. It isn't really something we have to worry about too much at our house. I am just super paranoid about it regardless. I can't find any out here, but throughout the rest of the house, we have a bright orange expo marker. I've gone through certain racks and marked on them in order so that way Shelby can go through, scrape the front of the tanks, and I go through behind her, siphon the water out, siphon any floating algae out of the tanks, and fill them back up with clean water. And that we order them in number from whatever, one to the worst, one being the best tank. Those are the shrimp that we've had for the longest. We know that they're not going to get any other shrimp sick. However, one tank might have an algae issue or something like that I don't want to pass on to other tanks. So when it comes to that number of tank, I'll put a star on that tank, and Shelby will go through and do that tank, and then we will totally clean the equipment, the siphon, the scraper, everything like that. We'll either soak it in rubbing alcohol or we use the Coral MD product from Brightwell. And this prevents anything from getting sick from one tank to the other. Shrimp will have immune systems built up for what kind of bacterias are lurking in their tank, and another tank might be completely different, but those shrimp have built up a different kind of gut load of immune system for those different kind of bacterias.
Garcia Aquatics, thanks for the $5 super chat. Says Garcia Aquatics here.
How's it
Can't
going,
do it
man?
justice.
I got your email. I'll be getting back to you tomorrow. I just wanted to put some time and effort into it. The last 2 days we've been quite busy with orders and getting things ready for Dean to come to town.
Thank you so much.
I was just talking about something. Cross-contamination. But I don't know where I was at. Just cleaning equipment. Just going in order from algae. I don't know where I went after that.
While we're talking about cross-contamination, one thing that could definitely cross-contaminate if you have multiple tanks is your siphon. So, but Carbon asked, what do you use for a siphon for your shrimp tank for water changes so you don't suck the shrimp out or harm them?
So we've got a little filter guard. It's made with the heat sink and some
heat
shrink.
We shrunk a sink.
You got me. All right, and a little bit of stainless steel mesh with super thin holes in it. That way it doesn't suck up any of the baby shrimp. Also, something to worry about is the shrimp legs are super small, that they'll go into like a net or a filter guard or something like that, and their legs can actually get ripped off. They're very sensitive. So
if you don't have the means to have that specific, that was kind of made for our hose, but like before, you could use pantyhose, cut it, put a rubber band around it. Socks can work too. Just be careful if they're washed in laundry detergent. It could be a problem.
But you're gonna want to wash all tools, scrapers, anything like that, especially when dealing with algae, even hair algae. If you take some hair algae from one tank and put it into another, and that tank isn't, really doing the best, it's kind of struggling or something like that, you're definitely gonna cause hair algae to start up in that tank a lot quicker than it would have, all on its own. Man, I just had something I wanted to talk about. Spacing. It's bad. Oh, the nets. That's why we have a net for each one of the shrimp tanks in the house. One of the guys from the clubs found out I was buying like hundreds of nets, and he thought that we were selling them on our website. And he's like, "Oh man, he's selling a lot of nets." They were all for us. Like, we're just keeping a net on every single one of our tanks. So it definitely helps with cross-contamination. The less things that can be used.
Where don't we sell nets?
I looked into it, and then
but continue.
we
Sorry.
got busy. We actually had a plumber at the house today, so things will be moving along in Jaden's room, and hopefully before midsummer we get Jaden back in his room. We get the armory set up with all the Nerf guns and everything like that, and another 50 fish tanks in his room. I'd like to make it like a solid 50. So that way when people are like, oh, how many tanks are in this room? 50.
Right.
50. It's easy. 50.
It's okay.
I like it when we go to the
back
club and Mike Labello's like, this kid, hey, this kid's got more tanks in his room than you do in his house.
It is good. But keep on track here.
We gotta stay on schedule, I guess. All right. Hitchhikers.
Not derail the trains like everyone else is doing around the United States. Ooh. Continue.
All right. Hitchhikers. Those are not what's derailing the trains. But we've got planaria, hydra, leeches, other different types of algae and stuff like that. Giba, all of these things can be a hitchhiker. Also, dragonfly eggs can be a big issue. They hatch in your tank. The larva or the nymphs will actually eat and devour a ton of shrimp. So want to avoid hitchhikers as much as possible. We have a little dip method that we use with the no planaria. We'll soak the plants or whatever we're adding into the tank for at least a good 3 hours, if not overnight. If I see any scuds or anything like that, Those are also a dangerous hitchhiker. We got a video on that. But we have, a 4-day soak in the no planaria. It really doesn't affect the plants too much. The only reason it would is if, like, say your plants got lost in shipping and they were there in shipping for an extra 4 or 5 days, and then the soak and stuff like that, they might not do too well. But as long as shipping went pretty easily, 3-4 days, a 4-day soak after that, it's going to kill just about everything. And I just use a good heavy 2 or 3 scoops and a 1 gallon of water of the no planaria. So, what do you think?
Ready for another question?
Yeah, shoot.
Sibley said, I found a detritus worm in the Neo tank. Water changes weekly, but the tank was neglected for months. Been doing weekly water changes for 2 to 3 months now. Any concerns with this?
Shelby, tell me about my worm farm.
It's gross.
And I won't let her touch it. I've got these worms coming out of the substrate like a herd of dinosaurs. They are the long neck straight out of Littlefoot. And then I've tried. The water quality isn't the best in the tank, and I don't want it to be the best in the tank because I want those worms to thrive. And I think it would be so cool if I could culture those worms. I don't know if other people have done it before in the past or tried, but I don't know. There's a shortage on black worms out there. Let's get into the concerns. But you should know they're in a tank that I really have been working on for 8 years. It's our coal tang tie tank, but I've been culling the coal tank, and it is now predominantly red, and they're all red tank tie. And those are one of the I don't know why they're popular, but every time I offer them available, I never have enough, and they always sell way faster than I can even think about why didn't I just try and breed some out. So that tank, I've been just doing it. They're out there, and the worm farm is going, and the shrimp are fine. The only worms that are an issue are leeches and the ones with the arrowheads and the beady eyes. They get you. We got a video on that too. Fun fact. All right, I think that's Hitchhikers in a nutshell. No planaria nutshell. No, okay, never mind. All right.
I wish I had a cricket sound for every terrible joke you said.
Little ones. All right. Next big killer is going to be aquascaping or moving your tanks. If you've already got shrimp in the tanks, don't mess with the substrate. I've had people where, I've got this one picture here, and then I moved this rock and this and that, but the rock was on top of the substrate, wasn't in the substrate. Well, there was a pile of rocks in one picture, and then in the next picture, there's no rocks. And in the first picture, there's legit a rock that is halfway in the substrate. So it's you move substrate from picture A to picture B, or if you move plants or anything, there's just stuff underneath the layer of substrate. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a marine biologist. I'm not even a scientist. I might be mad, though. But there isn't anything that I know of by name that's underneath there. There's just pockets of gases and other little things, nooks and crannies of just bad bacteria and stuff that when you move the plants or you fill up your tank water too fast or anything like that, moving the substrate at all can cause some issues. Not every time. There's somebody out there that's going, I do this to my tank every single week and it doesn't have an issue. Well, you might be causing those pockets of gas and stuff to build up and break up. And while I don't have the ability to do that to every single one of my tanks every single week or whatever you're doing to keep up with it. Also, some shrimp, again, their immune system's stronger. They might already be built up to those toxins or whatever is underneath the substrate. But there's, this thing where somebody will message me and be like, hey, I've got shrimp dying now every day for the past week. I did a water change, and then this happened, and I'm like, all right, everything, water parameters, everything's checked out to a dot. Even if they give me all their parameters and everything's matched up and they did it all right, I gotta believe them. Well, all right, what else did you do when you did that water changes? Well, I moved the plant, I trimmed this and repotted this, did something involving moving the substrate, and like 9 out of 10 times, that's what caused their issue, and it created a bacterial infection. And now they've got to add botanicals to the water, black water extract, do massive water changes to try and catch up and get ahead of the bacterial infection. I've got a video on that as well. We can dive more into that. But the best thing to do with a shrimp tank is set it up the way you want it to, and then leave it. Add the shrimp 30 days afterwards. But, you ever want to change the tank or redo anything, set up a vacation tank for the shrimp. It can be a small little 5-gallon, 2.5-gallon tank on the counter or something like that. Cycle it for 30 days. Move the shrimp to their vacation for 30 days. Mess with your tank. Get it back. Let it rerun its course. But anything else that you want to do, you're just risking it. You're rolling the dice on whether or not your shrimp are going to be fully healthy and happy. I'm making it sound like these shrimp are like so sensitive, but they're really not. And there's just little tips and tricks that can help you prevent anything from happening. So, next.
Jealous Alex is up here, and he's in Mexico all week.
I know, I saw him in Mexico.
Jealous.
Alex, I didn't have the time to read your article. I didn't have time to watch your video yet.
Oh, I want to see that.
I will be I will be picking up Dean from the airport on Friday, and I was going to listen to that on the hour drive to pick up Dean. What's up, Eric?
Eric says we love Great and Shelby. Welcome in. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat.
You can put just Shelby. You're not going to hurt my feelings. It's okay.
Welcome.
All right. You're the man, Eric.
We're so off on everything.
Trying to do like 20, 30 different things at once. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does, but it's better than doing nothing, right?
It's the beard, though. Likes your beard.
Oh.
At least someone likes it.
It's only, I keep saying it's going to be gone. I want to do something cool with it for our next video, and we just haven't had time to shoot the video. So it won't happen this week, I guarantee you that, because we've got Dean coming. But once Dean leaves, I'll be looking like somebody that's going to come and join us on the channel here in a second.
You're not shaving it all the way off, are you?
I mean, it might go all the way down. I don't know. We're going to see how I feel. I don't know. You never know. It's getting hot. Why is it getting so hot in Florida this soon? Like, usually February, it's our coldest month of the year. It has been hot all February.
You're worrying me. You're all over the place tonight. Oh, man. Frank had a question, and I will find that in a second.
You better find Frank's question. How dare you?
Well,
was it a UFC pertaining question?
No.
Probably not, because there's no questions after John Jones' performance last week.
It's here somewhere. It's going to take me a minute. Do you have something else?
No, the only thing I have is the next thing to talk about, and that's going to take me way longer than I should, because in 40 seconds we have our...
Oh, there it is. Looking to set up a Planet Tank no filter for Neos. Do's and don'ts.
Man, do set up a filter. Don't not set up a filter. No.
Stop.
Do set up a bunch of plants. Don't skip out on your water changes. So, set up as many plants as you possibly can in the filter. As the filter. I'm sorry. And then a nice layer of substrate. Lots of little gravel and stuff like that for little nooks and crannies for bio film to grow for your shrimp, but also for beneficial bacteria to grow and colonize. That will help reduce nitrates and stuff like that. And then you're also going to want to make sure you do nice, good, heavy water changes regularly. The smaller the bowl, the sooner you have to do your water changes.
All right, and it's time.
It's more.
How you doing?
What's up, man? I'm doing all right. I need more enthusiasm out of
I'm
here.
sorry.
Which says it's time.
It's all my fault.
So today's question is going to be really quick. Everything that's alive is inevitably going to die, so I am curious, how many deaths do you guys have in your 400 plus tanks?
All right. So, how many deaths? There's been thousands. Thousands. This was not the question. You switched it up. It was supposed to be how many questions every day. You know what I mean? That over time, there's been thousands, I'm sure. There's been some quesadilla incidents. There's been the Great Hurricane of 2019 or 18. I can't remember my years like that. One day I'll be an old timer and I'll be like, back in 19. But like every day we have like almost 400 tanks. Not quite there yet, you know, but with the ponds included and stuff like that, it isn't uncommon for us to find, I'd say on average, like 2 dead shrimp a day. Now, that's just what we can see. There's tanks where the whole tank is completely filled from filter to the front of the tank with moss. I'm sure there's a dead one in there sometimes that I'm not seeing it. There's also going to be those shrimp that die when I turn off the lights. They die in their sleep, or they're not really sleeping, but you know, during those times. And the other shrimp eat them before I ever see a dead body. So, okay. I kind of like thought about it a little bit. Like, I have, let's say, 300 shrimp tanks. There's 365 days in the year. I have roughly 10 shrimp in each tank that are adults. You know what I mean? So I could have anywhere in the house having, you know, if a shrimp was dying from old age, you know, 10 shrimp, you know, about there, 8 or 9 shrimp dying every day from old age. And I'm just not seeing it. So, and mind you, some of my tanks have 40 shrimp as adults. Some of the ponds have 2,000 shrimp, you know. So when the pond has 2,000 shrimp, a shrimp might die in that pond and be eaten in 30 minutes. I don't know. You know what I mean? I rarely ever see a like gathering of shrimp outside where it's a food pile gathering. And when I do, it's usually like an anole lizard or a bug of some sort that's fallen in the water. So it's not usually a shrimp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said, did I answer your question?
Yeah, because I've got 19 tanks now, so I was just kind of curious what I should be expecting for death tolls as I do increase more and when I should start to worry, so that definitely helps.
Either Shelby read it off wrong or I listened just completely wrong. But your shrimp your question is basically how often do I find dead shrimp? So I'd say every day, and it's basically like 2 shrimp. Some days I'll go no days, but like the one tad bit piece of information I'd like to give you, a little tip before you leave, is I like to test new foods based off of how many shrimp I have dead the next day. So this average of having 2 shrimp dead per day, I keep in mind. If I get a new food and I feed that food and the next day I have 5 shrimp dead, maybe it's a coincidence, but probably not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very rare that I find more than 3 shrimp dead in the house. And maybe if it was in like one area and I painted, you know what I mean? Maybe that would make sense or something like that. But if I'm just feeding a food and I've got more than 5 dead shrimp the next day, generally speaking, I don't want to use that food anymore. So
Okay.
and I've tested that out where I've used the same food quite a few times, and every time I'd have like 4 or 5 extra shrimp dead the next day. You know what I mean? So I'd
Gotcha.
rather avoid that.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man. Shelby's not here. You want to keep me company? Keep me safe while I'm here, so I'm not all alone.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Next one on the list is, and we've got a solution for all of these. And since Shelby's not here, the solution is aquachar. And I found one of the better things to do with aquachar, you know, because Shelby's farts stink just like everybody else's farts stink. So you take the powdered aquachar dust and you just, you know, the black underwear, you just put it in there, the black pants and stuff like that. She'll never notice it, and you know you're breathing fresher throughout the day. You know, it works for the kids. It works for yourself. You know, you want to smell a little bit better. You know, a little aquachar in the panties. You know.
Yeah. I'm sure
Just
when you do, I'm sure
she's
when you
gonna
do
kill me.
laundry,
Don't let her
it
know I said
helps
that.
the whole load out too. So
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I'm sure when you do laundry later, it helps the whole load out too. So
Yeah, that was a joke, everybody. I'm completely just joking, but it's carbon. It'll help out, but basically for this one, it's like hand oils and stuff like that. You don't know what's on your hands. If you just like Shelby and you just went into the laundry room, you added some bleach into one container and a little laundry detergent in another. You want to make sure you get those chemicals off. You don't want to wash your hands with a lot of soap and then not get all the suds off and stuff like that. So really make sure you rinse or boil your hands with a lot of water before you put your hands in any tanks. Anything like what? I think she might have heard something.
she might have heard.
Look. Or no, she didn't hear anything. She just assumed I said something. It was a trap. I fell for it. But the pesticides on the hands, stuff like that. Man, I was going somewhere with it, and then Shelby totally distracted me. I have no idea. What was the last thing I said, babe? She wasn't listening either.
Washing your hands.
Yeah, you just want to make sure you boil your hands, get everything off the hands before you go into the tank. You still want to avoid doing that at all costs. There's a ton of different kind of aquarium tools, nets, tweezers, stuff like that. They sell like 26-inch tweezers and snips and stuff like that. So you never really have to stick your hands in the tanks if you don't want to. The other thing is like pesticides. Do a little bug bomb in the house or something like that. Of course, any of that pesticides fall into the tanks. And then air softeners, Lysol, Febreze, anything like that. If anything chemical whatsoever along those lines gets in your tanks, the shrimp are sensitive in those cases. They'll act lethargic, and that's why we add the aquachar into the tanks, and they'll take it out of the water, and you don't have to take the aquachar out. It'll make it inert, and it'll break down, and it won't affect the shrimp at all or anything like that. So
Yeah, I personally love the aquachar. I've said it a few times already on this channel, but saved my purple colony after you guys recommended I use it. So definitely thankful that I always have it on hand now.
you got a little bit on hand, or do you just throw it in all your tanks?
Just a little.
No. What I was getting at is, do you just keep it as like an emergency medication, or have you already gone through and placed it in all of your tanks?
Oh, each of my tanks have it now. After seeing what it did to the purple colony, I just tossed a whole handful into each, and then I've got 2 full boxes on back up here.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, I guess that's it for tonight. I got Shelby back with me, so I'm gonna dive back in here, answer some more questions, get caught back up in chat, and we'll see you next week, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
See you later.
Later, man.
Thanks.
Timothy Reed asked, "What color cross would come from yellow neo and dark blue neos?" Thank you.
I would say 99% of the time you're gonna get wilds. That 1%, I couldn't tell you what that's gonna be. If you're gonna get something cool, if you're gonna get a cross between the two, if you're gonna get some greens, I don't really know, but. Every time I've tried this cross, and I've tried it like 10 times, I ended up with wild. So I'm not really going to retry that one or anything like that. I'd rather like work with the greens that kind of throw yellow and blues and maybe try and select and breed something that way. But I won't be trying that cross anytime soon again.
Jeff Kane asked, "Grant, Shelby, are you working with any wild type shrimp, not neos?"
There's a lot. We've got Stardust, the Super Princess Bees, quite a few different types of Suluese, Stardust, Raccoons, Super Tigers, Cheetahs, the Hummel. There's a lot. We've got anything I can get my hands on. Like I used to have some leopard tigers and some galaxy tigers, like the wild type galaxies, not the Nanashi. But I never got them to breed. They were imports. We had the Babaltis. But most of the. Let me finish talking about one shrimp before we move on to the other. What did I say? I don't know. The one shrimp that I just had. Oh, the leopards and the galaxies. When we got them, we got like half DOA every time we got them. So didn't really. And half DOA, I ended up with a heavy male population afterwards, and that's gonna bring us to our next one, which is too many males. If you have too many males in the tank, this can certainly cause some issues in your female population. Say you have 2 males or 1 male for every female. Well, the females aren't all going to be ready to go at the same time. The one that is ready is going to release hormones into the water, and then all of the males are going to go for her at once. You know, they're not all going to tag her, but they're all going to try and find her and hunt her down. And some of them are going to get confused and go after females that aren't ready to be buried up or tagged yet, and it's going to stress those out. It can go after females that are already buried, and those could get stressed out and lose their eggs. But having too many males can certainly cause death in the tank. Females stressed out. They never have babies, absorb their babies. They just, as they become pregnant, they become weaker. It might force them into a molt or something like that, and then they become soft, and they're easy prey for a bunch of hungry, thirsty, hormone-driven males.
Easy Rider said, "So could I keep the raccoons, tigers, and neos in the same tank without them crossing? And would they be able to thrive together?"
So, yes, you can. The raccoons with, say, tangerine tigers, and then the whatever neocaridina color you want. They would all do well right around 220 total dissolved solids, 7 GH, 3 KH, 72 temperature, and a neutral pH. They can take, lower pH as well. For those parameters, it's really whatever is the easiest water for you to make and keep consistent. But every time we've kept more than one different type of shrimp together, they do end up over competing one another, and one will grow the other one. There are examples of other people who are breeding 2 different types of shrimp in one tank, and both of them are thriving, no problem.
Was that the end?
Yeah, I hope so.
Night Owl Aquatic said, how often is the best for water changes for neons? Haven't changed in a bit, and they are doing better than ever.
You got this one.
So we do recommend 10% a week or 20% every 2 weeks. It is better for usually anything in your tank. They will breed better. I have difference of opinions with Grant on this too. I think a lot of shrimp don't need as much water change, that they would do fine. But however, the tank overall in appearance and plant growth does a lot better with more water and more water changes and the frequency, and not frequency, I would say consistent water changes. So at least once a week, and you want it to fall on the same day, you will notice an improvement. I have had shrimp that did really great without us touching the tank, which is my big argument why you don't have to do them weekly or monthly at that point, is because you're not constantly in there stressing them out. So there is, weigh your options, but most of the time it is much better, especially if you have moss in the tank. It's 10 times better if you do a lot more water changes, any plants. So we'll move on. Hopefully that answered your question. Sorry, I get nervous when he's not here. Yes, we are the reason shrimp nets go out of stock. Just kidding. No, we buy from a local place. Coro says, do you use command hooks for those nets, or do you have magnetic strips for your tools? No, we're not that fancy. All of them just get placed on the lid. So that's just right here for that tank. And then we rinse it before we use it most of the time, because dust will accumulate on the lids. And if you don't use it for a little bit, you do want to rinse it. It would cost a lot for magnetic strips, and then wouldn't remember. That actually would be a cool idea, but cost efficient. It's just better to throw it on the lid of the tank. You gonna come back anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to blow my nose.
Yeah, how dare you? TFI Aquatics asked, what is the most you've ever spent on one shrimp?
$200. We bought we bought 4 of our original Fancy Tiger shrimp for $200 a piece, and then I bought a group of lower grades for $180, and was able to use the lower grades and the higher grades to breed our Fancy Tigers that we have out today.
Hello, June. Only Oscars. Seed shrimp, are they a problem?
Absolutely not. If you have an outrageous amount and the population is booming, like there's thousands over the front of the tank, chances are you're overfeeding, and that could be a problem. So you can definitely use seed shrimp as a warning sign in that response. However, I like to see a good, healthy amount of seed shrimp in the tank when I'm cycling it. That way I know that the tank is good and ready to go. You could just add a little tiny bit of a little bit of tiny food right before you start up the tank and finish the cycle to encourage some seed shrimp to grow, but you don't really need to do it. They call them seed shrimp because their eggs, just like seeds, can become airborne out of water and go through the air, travel, and end up in water. So even if you've never added anything to your tank at all, just sand and water in a filter, you can still get seed shrimp in your tank. Less chance if there's a lid, though.
Alex, do you hate Dean or something? I don't know if it was something about the beard after Dean leaves or something. I don't know. No, he does. No, we just
I'm so lost.
anticipating Dean's visit. It's more of getting everything in tip-top shape to make sure it looks great.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting with that, Alex. How'd you do while I was gone?
Terrible.
Did you get any of these done?
No.
No? Oh, man.
I don't know how to read your handwriting.
All right.
Favorite substrate for Neos?
All-time favorite, and it might be a little bit biased because our logo is on our label. Our label is on the logo of the Samurai Soil. It's a Carib Sea brand. However, it all around, it's uniform. It looks just like Aqua Soil. It's not too dark. It's not too light. It's super clean. It's easy to clean if you ever had to. It's nice and heavy, and it's not going to break down and lose its uniformity or anything like that. If I had to pick a second favorite, it would be the Eco Complete. So I just like the lava stone style structure substrate with all the porous core. It looks good. Adds a lot of little nooks and crannies for biofilm to grow and stuff like that.
Okay, continue
All right.
with your list.
Now we've got the issue of imports. In shrimp, I talked about it before with homebred shrimp having a higher demand. This is simply because when you're a shrimp, you're small, you don't got a lot going on. You get ripped out of one tank, thrown into another facility, ripped out of that facility, thrown into an airplane, thrown into a different country, thrown into a new facility, into a new tank, and then you're expected to breed and do well, and all of your reproductive organs to be perfectly intact, and you're not to be stunted or anything like that. It's a lot to ask for a shrimp, and it's a lot to ask for the adult shrimp. A lot of the imports, Neocaridina specifically, you can get imported caridina that are super small, but if you've ever gotten imported caridina and they were small and they never grew up, well, the part of the reason why is because they were put through so much stress, through so many different parameters, that they were never able to get through and grow, and they missed out, and they're probably stunted, and they could still look like juvenile shrimp, even though they're not. They're going to be just like other animals where they were shortened because of smaller cage or something like that, and they just didn't grow up to be their full size. Same thing here. You want to make sure that you've gotten your shrimp from a reliable source, that they bred them themselves is the best thing you can possibly do. But there are people who do like a 30-day quarantine on the shrimp and stuff like that. At 30 days, you should see an extra 30 days of growth. The one bad thing about like holding them for so long is those first 2 months of the shrimp's life, they're the most resilient, the most hardy. They're still made out of rubber and magic, just like little kids are. Once they get to a certain age, they start to break down and fall apart like I am. And with shrimp, taking a whole month of that time is really taking out the time where that shrimp could do a lot better if it was to be acclimated to a different water source and stuff like that. So being able to find shrimp from a homebred source, from somebody right down the road that's got the same water parameters that you do, is going to give you the best chance of you breeding out the shrimp yourself. So if you can find a good source of homebred shrimp locally, the next best thing is there's plenty of shrimp all over the United States. We don't have every single variety of shrimp out there. So say you wanted chrysalis shrimp, sorry, I've got a little bit of a waiting list on those, but there are plenty of people out there across the states who are breeding chrysalis shrimp, and you can get them from one of them at a good price, and you don't have to risk going down that import road. With neocaridinas, imports tend to have a lot more parasites, fungal issues, bacterial infections, stuff like that. You don't really have those issues with caridina, but with homebred shrimp all around, you're going to get a healthier shrimp. Back to you, Shelby.
Aquatic Moose asks, what is your hand wash routine before going in?
Yellowstone said, boil your hands, everyone. It's a great answer. Run the hot water as hot as you can for as long as you can. I will use any kind of soap. Once upon a time, we were using a shrimp safe soap, but I don't really think it was doing anything. I wash my hands, different varieties of different kinds of soaps, but afterwards, I do run them through the water for like a good 2 minutes to make sure all the suds are off, any chemicals are off, anything like that, before I dip and grab the RO water hose or anything like that. So,
Mile High Fish said, I received tangerine tigers and put them in a 20 tall. Hydra from one of my other tanks must have jumped. What do I do?
all right. So a little bit of no planaria is going to be your best answer. I had a tank where it had hydra in it, and I was planning on growing those out into a nice little beautiful colony. And I don't know what happened to them. They all died. Like, didn't add any no planaria into the tank or anything like that. Added it to the very end of the life cycle of my water changes, just so it didn't cross-contaminate any of the other tanks. And none of the planaria are there anymore. Not the planaria, the hydra are there anymore. So I don't know what happened there. So no video on it. But if you do a half dose of no planaria, follow the same instructions, dose it at nighttime, do a 90% water change the next day. A half dose of water of no planaria will get rid of hydra as well. So Shelby's dying over there. She keeps resurrecting from the dead, though.
Do you have another topic?
Got a couple.
I don't know how to pronounce this. So it's, guys, I have a question. My red Really tank all died off. When I inspected them, I realized that all had this white stuff inside them. 8 years of breeding, never came across such thing. Anyone have any ideas what I'm facing? As of, I haven't seen to have any idea.
So the white stuff inside them, I would think would be the muscular necrosis. I probably butchered that. But if you go to our bacterial infection video, basically that will go through all of the things that possibly could have caused it. 8 years of breeding, never came across that thing. I'm not sure if you went a little bit too long without doing water changes, or maybe you got bored of the tank or something like that. But I would definitely go and watch that video and see if maybe you set off one of the things. I had mentioned up above, anything that touches the substrate, hot temperature, or simply adding in shrimp, or if you had shrimp in one tank and you used the net for that shrimp and you didn't clean it and you added it to that tank, your shrimp could have gotten a bacterial infection that way.
Alex.
Also, there's foods that will turn the inside of the shrimp white as well. You need to be careful for that. It's not bad. I'm just saying, don't think you got bacterial infection just because your shrimp ate some mineral junkie.
So Alex said I use hydrogen peroxide or isopropyl 91%, evaporates off in 15 to 20 seconds, and H2O2 turns to hydrogen and oxygen or water.
Yep. It's what we use as well in a short pinch, or if we run out of the Coral MD. And don't use the rubbing alcohol on acrylic.
Yeah, I found out the hard way.
But we learned our lesson when we went to go clean one of the breeder boxes to go from one tank to the other. We did not use the bacteria, the rubbing alcohol. We used the H2O2. All right, back to me.
Yep.
I saw Grant or Shelby
Daniel.
question.
No, he's going to watch the video. Daniel said, did those opaulas stay yellow after you moved them to a new tank?
We haven't moved them to a new tank yet. You caught me
Still
red-handed
yellow, though.
or yellow-handed. I'm sorry. No, the garage, the leak, Jaden's room, it's all just taking way longer than we expected. A lot of it is we've got projects, and we're young and having fun and collecting, and Shelby needs her days off too, so we'll go collecting and spend a whole day out and having fun, and not really worried about getting the Opaula tank set up. That's on the last of the priority list, sadly.
And Alex said, I find when I mix shrimp species, one always does way better than the other. Like, I've never seen two do exactly the same numbers in the year.
I haven't either, but there have been claims to fame and pictures and proof and stuff like that. But maybe they're feeding extra. Maybe they're putting other shrimp on timeout. I don't know what their secrets are.
I think that you would have to at least have a 20-gallon tank to do multiple species in one tank. I think that it becomes domination where they want to have their own space, so give them more space, and I think you'll see a lot more breeding of the two. That's my opinion. We've just never really done it since.
And it could also be about like the ants thing. If you take two different kind of ants, red ants and black ants, and throw them into the same little space together, they'll be fine. They won't attack each other. But if you shake the cage, the ants think that the other species is the thing that's causing the issue. So the ants will start attacking one another. So everything could be fine and dandy in the tank until one day it's not. And it's the other shrimp's fault. And then it's war after that. I don't know.
So Scuba said, I water change by 5 gallons like 80% every other week. I don't know if that's good or not, but they breed and seem healthy. Other than a few I had during power outage, is 80% too much?
I would honestly do like 40% every week rather than 80% every other week. But 80% every other week sounds like something I would do.
120% water changes. No, sure. Yeah, you could really put unless you can absolutely make the water parameters, the temperature, everything the same exact, I would not suggest doing that big of a water change unless there's something actually wrong with the tank. But if they're breeding and good, you want to keep it as stable as possible, which is why you would do the 15 or 10% once a week or 20 every other week.
Like the only tanks that I really like to do 80% water changes on are the ponds outside, and that's if I didn't get to them in a decent amount of time. And I can go really, really slow on filling them up and it not affect the shrimp. So those are the only ones where I really like to do an 80% water change. Don't worry about that. It's just the wall mount falling. I don't know what the noise was.
It sounded like
That's
that.
what went through my head too.
The TV's just a slightly, maybe it will stay on the mount or not.
The mount said up to 50 inches. It is a 50-inch TV. So
Brandon said, is it normal to get green water during a cycle? I might be blasting too much light to grow the green walls.
it is not normal. In all of my years of shrimp keeping and fish keeping, we've only had one actual green water tub, and it's outside. And everything else inside, we'll go through like a cycle of the bacterial bloom or something like that once in a while. But I never get green water. You might be getting too much daylight through one of the windows or something like that. We might have done like a little powdered food thing, some dead shrimp powder or something like that. But I can't trust a product that has dead shrimp in the name. Like that doesn't make sense. I want live shrimp products.
Robbie say, discus check. They're not staring at us. No, they're just they're like separating themselves in the tank. I believe they're becoming territorial, which I remember Dr. Anthony saying that they would not have reproduced. They would not be able to reproduce, but they are seeming to act like they're pairing off and then getting mad at the others. So might have to do some rearranging and do 2 different discus tanks.
The goal was to put one of the pairs into one of the scape tanks that are to be set up on the new rack. The rack is done. We just haven't had time to set up a tank.
Scuba said, is driftwood okay for caridina? If so, should I wash it and soak it in RO water?
Yeah, so driftwood is usually all right there's different kinds of driftwood, but generally speaking, lapani, manzanita, stuff like that, spiderwood, those are all good woods to add into the tanks. To clean your wood beforehand, you can just simply take the piece of wood and submerge it and sink it underwater for a few days, and that's going to kill everything off. You don't have to run it in RO water or anything like that. You don't need to boil it. Just completely submerging it for a couple of days is going to kill anything. As long as the piece of wood was dry beforehand. If you pulled it right out of the water, then you're going to have to kill some of the critters. That's a whole nother story. Let that dry out for a while.
I forgot to talk about this earlier. Craig's doing like a crystal substrate, and it's so cool. I want to see that. I've always wanted to, because they're a nerd, so you should be able to do it, no problem. The only thing is, I know they're gonna get
complete bottom of the tank
green, so no matter what. So I don't know how you're gonna like rinse it or take care of it if you don't want them to be green. I know I had one crystal in a tank before, and it got green, and then just like any surface usually in a tank. Alex said he just found out iguanas have 2 male parts. Did not know that.
I just found out too. All right. We had talked about this earlier with Steve's tank. Lack of oxygen can definitely be an issue. A lot of times I'll have people go through what they have in their tanks, and they came across a video on Baker AE and how great it is for your shrimp tanks, and then they got the product, bought it themselves, and dosed it to the tank according to the directions on the bottle, and that I'm sure the bottle and those directions work for tanks that are heavily filtrated with a ton of extra oxygen stones and stuff like that, because in the average shrimp tank and the average keeper and stuff like that, they've just got one little sponge filter going or a hang on the back and something like that, and they're going to be dosing the full spoon of Baker AE, and it's going to absorb a ton of oxygen. Biofilm will absorb a ton of oxygen while it needs to grow, and especially if you have an explosion of a colony of biofilm growing and adding a thick layer to a new tank and stuff like that, it's going to deprive the tank of oxygen. So make sure when you're dosing Baker AE, I like to use like a quarter of the recommended dose, if not less than that, and I only dose it when doing a water change to the tank. So I'll add it to the tank, and then I'll fill the tank up with water. That way I know the tank has a ton of readily available oxygen, and I make sure that the filters and everything are going, so that way the oxygen levels in the tank are nice. There are little oxygen dosers that you can put in the tanks, oxidizers. You put a little bit of H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, in the tank. It's just hydrogen and oxygen. It'll break down and put oxygen into your tank for you. We have so many tanks in throughout the house. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for us to do that. In a state of emergency or something like that, we're going to run a generator. And if I was really worried about it, I'd be better off just dropping an extra air stone into every tank and upgrading the air system. And that would be a lot cheaper than buying oxidizers for each one of the tanks.
Also, we could do water changes, hopefully, if we had water running.
Yeah.
Benjamin Peters said, do you think most shrimp breeders are too secretive? It seems like nobody else will tell all the stuff you do. Thanks for the stream.
I don't think that they're too secretive, but I don't think there's a lot of shrimp breeders out there. There's a few. Like, don't get me wrong, Eric Lucas, he's one of the ones that dabbles into as many different types of shrimp. Can't even tell you as much about the Peruvian or the Sulawesi and Opaula and stuff as I can. Maybe not, but like all the crossbreeding and stuff, he's got general knowledge of it. He's more of a keep to himself kind of guy, where I'm more out there, put my face out there and stuff like that. Where besides the two of us, there's some breeders that just do caridina. There's some breeders that just do neos, and they just don't have all of the links and the puzzle pieces to put everything together. The other thing is, Eric's got a lot of shrimp. He doesn't have all the ones that I have. He's got a lot of tanks, but he doesn't have it set up to where I can take all the new types of shrimp that I have and cross them with all the old types of shrimp that I have and see what comes out, and then cross those with something else and see what comes out. So I've kind of unlocked a lot of the secrets just doing that. And then I have Shelby as well. So the two of us, we really have unlocked and done a lot of different things, a lot of research, stumbled across a few things that maybe the other people haven't. And, you know, with one another, we use each other as a resource to put things together, to remember things, and get a lot more done that way. So I just think that the lack of information is there for the United States because there's not as many people like us doing it like this. Where in Asia, I'm sure there's 5 or 6 breeders who are doing it bigger than I am, and probably 10 more that are doing it just like I am. But they're not. Their social medias aren't traveling across the pond over here, and sadly, because of Facebook and the rule change with the no live sales, we don't really communicate as much with the foreign sellers as we used to.
Scuba Steve asks, can feeding dead shrimp to my fish get them sick?
This is an argument me and Shelby have. I feel like 99% of the dead shrimp that we have in the house are dying because of old age. Maybe 1 or 2 bacterial infections here and there, but I talked to Dr. Anthony. I don't think the bacterial infection can go from the shrimp to the fish. And we had a flower horn get sick. I don't think it was from the shrimp. Shelby does, but neither one of us are scientists.
I don't think it's just the shrimp. I think it could have been the bloodworms we were feeding too, which also is, if you think about it, shrimp and bloodworms, if any of it is infected or something's wrong with it, could get the fish sick. I just typically would not feed a dead shrimp. If you have plants outside, that's a better source for it anyways, nutrients for your plants. I mean, give it some purpose if something does die to me. He thinks it's okay. We fed many dead shrimp to fish, and it was no problem. So it could happen, but who knows? Maybe it did make it sick, but I don't think our flower horn was sick because of the shrimp. I think it was actually the bloodworms that we get from said source, big brand pet store. That there's other things that are in that bloodworms that aren't bloodworms. So,
but I will have another fish that I will designate all of the dead shrimp to, and will, you know, if the issue ever happened again, hands down, I'll stop doing it. But I don't think it's an issue. That's where we differ in opinions, though. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have no science to back it up, we're going to have difference of opinions, like most people on all things that don't have any credible thing behind it.
All right. Next up on the list, hair algae. Maybe not like the craziest killer out there, but it is one that a lot of people might not realize is deadly to your shrimp. Not eating it or anything like that, but if you have a massive wad or just a field of hair algae in the tank, shrimp can get caught up in the hair algae, and because of that, they won't be able to get the food source that they want. I've gone over this in other videos where the shrimp don't really eat the algae. If shrimp are eating algae, it's like dead algae or unhealthy algae that's kind of on its way out. They don't really eat healthy growing algae at all. So them being caught up in a tangled mass of just growing matter that they can't really eat or consume, and there isn't anything else swimming or making it through. They can't make it out of the hair algae to a food pile. They end up dying or suffocating in that mass. And it's just, if you can have the tank free of hair algae, you're going to have a higher survival rate of your shrimp for sure. Next question.
Rob did say, I noticed that my ghost shrimp meat turns white next day dead, and that was the necrosis.
Yeah.
For sure.
That would be bacterial infection. Can you go check on the other water?
Is that what that is?
Maybe flooding. I don't know. Probably flooding. Is it?
Oh!
It's a flood. But 15 minutes in, I'll be able to handle it. I thought she would have seen it when she just did the laundry. It's always my fault. So, this leads us to our next topic, which is, of course, not doing water changes. So, you can't flood if you're not doing water changes. So there's a good thing there, but you might get away with not doing water changes in a tank for 6 to 8 months or so, maybe even longer. I'm sure there's reports of people having tanks for years, but there are rare occasions, and what works for one person doesn't work for another. And generally speaking, there's that whole myth out there where shrimp don't like new water or don't like water changes or anything like that. And what it is shrimp don't like alterations to parameters. So if there's any temperature swings or difference in parameters whatsoever, this is going to take an effect on the survival rate of babies, or cut into the deaths of adults or anything like that as well. When you have perfect parameters and you're doing perfect water changes, your shrimp are going to have the absolute highest percent chance of having the highest percent baby survival rate. If you're not doing water changes, you're just playing that whole, it's just like CO2 to me. It might work for a little bit while, but eventually something can go wrong, and that's when a crash is going to happen. And then that's when you're going to stop hearing about that person that didn't do, because that person that does no water changes for 2 years is going to brag about how he hasn't done water changes for 2 years. And then another half year into it, his tank's going to crash. And he's not going to tell anybody that his tank crashed, or he's going to blame it on this or something like that. Not the fact that he hasn't done water changes for 2.5 years. So, yeah, maybe their tank is thriving and producing babies and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't have had more babies and longer success if they were just doing regular water changes. So it's one of those things where if you're only spending $20 on doing water changes a month, you could easily make more than $20 in babies off of selling some shrimp from just doing those simple water changes. And $20 in water changes for most people is probably an awful lot. Our water bill is only like $50, and then we spend maybe $30 a month in salts. That's doing the whole house. So water changes are, relatively speaking, very cheap. I wish Shelby would trade places with me. I don't hear the shop vac going on. So, how's the itch? I don't know what itch you're talking about. Don't have an itch. Or how's the ick? I can't read. So you're talking to somebody else. Now it just jumped on me. All right, 5% daily water change. Oh, wait, that's just a top off. No. If you're just topping off, that's not going to be a water change at all. You got to be doing more than that. That's not going to do much help for your shrimp. If you're doing water top off, so make sure you're doing straight RO water. That way you're not having a TDS spike at all. All right. A lot of people talking to it. I don't know how Shelby does this. That's all I have on my list. There isn't really much out there that kills shrimp too much often. I mentioned the great quesadilla issue when my daughter was a little bit younger. For lunch, made them quesadillas. I was busy doing a project or something like that. Wasn't watching them where they put all the food. And later on for dinner, looked over at one of my favorite tanks and saw that it was like white, milky, and cloudy. And I thought that my son had taken his bowl of cereal and gone over to the tank and dumped it into the tank. But got a little bit closer, inspected it, found a probably 3/4 of a quesadilla in the tank, and enough time had gone by that the water had softened up the cheese and the tortilla enough that when I stuck my hand in to grab it, it just deteriorated into nothing. Total loss for the tank. Lost all my Aurora Blues, and at the time I was keeping 2 shrimp in the same tank. Lost the Black Rose as well. All right. Do you guys have any experience with leopard frog plecos? If so, are they social? No, I don't have any experience with leopard frogs. I'm sorry. The only plecos we really have are the L136, the false pleco, the false zebra plecos. What do you use for a timer to turn your tanks on and off? I don't know the brand or style or anything like that. They're like just the little cheap dial timers. You plug them into the wall, and then you plug your outlet into that. But majority of the tanks are not even on timers. We use the tank lights here. These are the lights for the entire room. So I'm not gonna walk through the room in a dark room without turning on the lights. So usually during the day, the lights are on, and then when we go to bed, we turn off all the lights to the whole house. So the cheap timers from Walmart or Home Depot work really well, though. We do have a couple tank stands on timers. So, all right. Do you sell tigers and neoparameters? We have raccoons, stardust, and tangerine tigers, all in neoparameters. You just need to put in the notes that you would want them for neoparameters. Otherwise, they will come from the caridina tanks. The reason for that is they breed a lot faster in the caridina tanks than they do in the neocaridina tanks. And if you're worried about whether or not they're going to come from neo or caridina parameters, email us ahead of time. Because there are times where we don't have any of them available. So right now, though, we have all 3. All right. As temperatures start to warm up in the spring and summer, and we transition from using heater to air conditioner, could that cause issues in the shrimp tanks? No, as long as you're keeping the temperature in the house relatively the same, it won't be an issue. For us, we keep the house at 72, whether the AC is on or the heat is on. Very rare do we run the heat in Florida, though. I go through a lot more water on live streams now than I used to. Soak and tap is fine. Man, I don't remember what I was telling you. Soaking and tap. But Shelby said yes, so I believe what she said. Yeah. Thanks for any significant other that's cleaned up another one's water change. I was at the golf course yesterday, and I seen the most ducks in one spot. JP said they were just whistling ducks, so I have no idea if that's the right type of duck or what, but they were just making little whistles. I have no idea. Zen said, thanks for the info. And I went 3 whole days with no electricity and tap water, but make sure you use some chlorine to take out the, use some prime to take out the chlorine. Oh man, I'm backwards. Been bad lately. Eric and Alex will be discussing animal parts. I actually bought the kids a book today on what animals are responsible for what technology has been invented. I thought it was interesting. Neither one of the kids seemed to find much interested in it at all. All right, scroll. Taking that from LRB. Something I think of in my head while I'm looking through all this and don't know what to talk about while I'm trying to catch up and chat with y'all. You want to switch, Shelby? I'm dying here without her. She's usually got 15 things lined up for me. Saw her walking. She was behind me. It was false hope. All right, let's try to find a question here. How many more floods do you need, Grant? I don't know. I don't think I necessarily need any more floods. I need to not have more floods for a while. That would help. Found out where the leak was, though. No, that's not a question for me. Somebody else. Oh, man. What about Father Fish? What about him? I don't know. Daniel, where are you going with that? He moved out of Florida. I haven't been part of his shenanigans for a while. All right. Just going to go to live here since I haven't caught up or anybody. What are the hardiest? Oh, here we go. Scuba Steve saving us. What are the hardiest caridina to keep versus the easiest? The hardest caridina to keep. So the hardest caridina to keep for me would have to be the calcios. Everything else does relatively speaking really good for us. The super crystals, one way or another, they're doing great. My black calcios are doing fine. The red calcios are now doing all right. But for us, they're the hardest shrimp to keep. The easiest shrimp to keep are going to be the tangerine tigers. Do I need to go finish? You got everything? Yeah. All right, thank you. Mm-hmm. She's the real champ, people. Give her a round of applause, everybody. No, sorry. The tangerine tigers, they just breed. They can take a lot different hardier parameters like the neocaridina, harder water, where the calcios, they're not going to do very well. Baby survival rate will be very low. So back to you, Shelby.
Aquatic Moose said, for shrimp water changes, do you just pull the water or focus on gravel back?
I just pull the water. We don't vacuum the gravel at all in our shrimp tanks.
For the fish, I do, if you can safely remove it. But I don't actually touch the substrate. I just hover right over it to get some of the mold if it bothers you. But don't do it with shrimp unless you plan on having a net on the other end, because you will suck up shrimp because they think it's just fun.
And you can cause a bacterial infection.
Yep.
I went through the whole list. So it wasn't a congratulations. It was I have nothing else to talk about.
Grant, since you shared your water bill, are you willing to share your power bill with all those lights and heating?
So it used to be, on average, $300 to $350 a month. However, we've added 4 heaters, 5 more lights, and I don't know. We're going in and out of the garage a lot more. Our bill has gone up to now $400 to $450 a month. We also have the whole water issue thing. where the leak in the hot water pipe should be fixed relatively soon. I'm hoping we pinpointed exactly where the issue was. We don't have to move any tank stands or anything like that. So yeah, we'll be figuring out if that is a forever thing or if it's just temporary. But we also have a doggy door. Our dogs go in and out of the house a lot. I think if we got a more efficient, thicker, triple walled doggy door, we could save some electric bills. What's so funny? You gotta share with everybody.
Jeff said, was feeding the fish and heard something about shall we shop vacuum and overflow? No, just cleaning up with house. Or are you talking about the 190?
No. I thought it was bad enough that you need the shop vac.
No. I thought you told the story about the 190 where
No.
I don't want a big tank ever again in my life because of that 190. And when it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and had to shop back our entire living room and, you know, running on little sleep as you do, running a business and working a full-time job, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to vacuum water off the floor it's not so pleasant. It's not, fun.
Thought it was the kids. It was water.
Scum said I meant more fish tank projects for you, not me. Oh, to reiterate earlier, to soak in tap water, don't forget the chlorinator though. Do not soak it with just straight tap water. Sorry.
I put the dechlorinator. I added that in.
Okay.
We gotcha. I said make sure you put chlorine in to take out, and then I was like, oh no, I'm very backwards today.
Lucky you get paid for the 3 days. COVID pay? They made me use all my PTO. COVID days. I had a lot of PTO saved up. Welcome in, Kenny. Aaron said, so do I need to add a nutrient layer under Acclimation substrate?
No, you don't need to add anything like that at all. I know there's like MKit products and other little stuff you can add to it, but I've done, 10 to 20 tanks where I added several different types of products to the substrate, and they don't do any better than the tanks that I do nothing to. So.
Toro said, Sulawesi are cardinal, though, or am I mistaken?
Caridina.
Oh, what did I say?
I think they are
I said
caridina,
cardinal,
but there are
sorry.
different subspecies of caridina. I don't know.
They take totally different parameters, so most likely not even related to. I mean, caridina is on the spectrum of the lower pH. Sulawesi are completely different shape, usually, too.
Yeah, they're different shape. Like the females, they don't get the curved bodies; they get like V-backs. So
There's not enough research on shrimp, that's for sure. It's still something that needs to be looked at more, especially when some of the other wild type shrimp that we just don't like. Why don't raccoons cross with any other tigers? We don't know. Is that a genetic reason why they're not crossing? Is it, it's got to be something. Welcome in, Brenton. I just witnessed a murder. So Aquatic Move said, ooh, can you talk more about causing the bacterial infection from gravel back?
it's just moving the substrate. So you knock out some of those nasties that are in the substrate. They become airborne. Get one of the shrimp sick. That shrimp gets sick and dies. Then another shrimp comes over and eats it. Well, that shrimp now got sick, and then it repeats the cycle, and it can cause some real issues. We've got a video all on bacterial infection, though.
Kicking around the idea of solar for running tanks. That'd be pretty cool if you could get that to work properly. It's a lot of wiring, probably. Or, well, wire to a battery and then run the air pumps off the battery. Closed loop circuit with that and the lights. You could run it all off solar.
Just waiting
make
for us
little
to all
solar
have our
panels
own
that work,
nuclear
so.
fusion batteries.
Depends on, you would have to have a pretty good solar panel for that to actually put enough power out. Takes quite a bit of space for it to have the correct wattage. Jerome says, I'm going to blame the doggy door next time the wife brings up the power bill. Actually, you could blame it. So I don't think most people haven't realized because it's been like slowly over time. But it's not just you. Everyone is getting charged a lot more for electric. My parents, everybody I've talked to, their bill has gone up quite a bit. So it wasn't just because we have this issue. Like everyone's bill did get raised. So it's just, I expect that with everybody's minimum wage getting raised. What do you think's going to happen? All your bills are going to get raised. So it's just a nonstop battle. What were you going to say?
I don't know. What did he say? I don't remember.
Blame the doggy door.
Oh, the other thing is the heat index. So it's a lot hotter, faster, earlier in the morning, hotter longer throughout the days. So your AC's working a lot harder to keep the house cool.
That's even better. It doesn't actually have a doggy door. She's going to build one for you. I'm going to send you to the doghouse.
That's all I knew. We're at the top
I can
of the
only
hour.
read so fast. Jeff Kane says, I want a nuclear fusion battery. No. If anyone normal can get a hold on nuclear fusion batteries, it's just scary. Is that really what's going to happen?
Oh, 100%.
No.
It's just a matter of time.
That's terrible. That's a terrible idea.
Why? Save
Scuba
energy.
Steve. Oh, Aquatic said for the Donald Trump shirt for the $1.99 super chat.
$1.99 doesn't get you there, but I guess
This time.
for you. It's supposed to be a tenner, Mike.
Oh. I was like, what are you talking about? The glasses are not a 10. They're glasses.
I'll let you slide with $9.99. But next time.
Robert. Okay, I can never say that word for some reason. I spilled some food in the tank. I am cycling for caridina, and now I have detritus worms everywhere. What should I do?
So do a water change. Make sure you get those nitrates and nitrates down. But don't worry about the worms. They'll die off. They'll become shrimp food. They'll become worm food. They're not really going to be a problem. If you absolutely hate them, throw a small fish in the tank. But that small fish might eat some small shrimp. So I would just not worry about them personally. Make sure you do good water changes and avoid overfeeding, and maybe not feed for a few days. Let some shrimp eat some of the dead worms.
Of course, didn't Tesla cancel their solar roofs and their battery wall? Like, they took pre-orders and didn't deliver on them and then canceled the projects for them. I mean, Tesla can't even keep up with the demand of their electric cars right now. So I guarantee you they don't want to be building everything else.
I do believe that was a problem years ago, but I think that's not an issue anymore.
I have a doggy door. He's like, great excuse.
It is a legit one. When we started traveling and we started leaving the doggy door open at all times, our electric bill definitely went up. The AC in our house struggles. If we put the cap down on the doggy door, the AC will be a little bit cooler.
All right, Aquatic Moose. It says, has anyone ever heard about running the lights at night to save on power rates? Just a thought. I don't think it would save much on power rates considering it's still going to pull the same wattage from the outlet.
I think it might be cheaper at night if you run electricity at night.
Why though?
I don't know, because less people are using it.
So maybe. It could. The only thing would be it would probably not do well with the fish and shrimp unless you have in a completely blacked out house. So if you every window has those like what are they, like the sun reflecting ones, because any light during the day is gonna constantly distract them. I mean,
it's not just going to distract them, it's going to grow algae and stuff like that. Imagine if your algae had a 24-hour photo light throughout the day. It's going to grow like it's on steroids. If you never give it darkness for it to stop growing, it's just constantly going to grow.
Oops, caps lock was on. Oh, it made it so much better though. Oh, I love how Coro says Scuba owes $8.01. He said he's gonna put an order in soon.
We'll short you $8.01 shrimp. I'm just kidding. I never do that.
Big Dog asks, do you have to do water change in shrimp tank? Can you just top off?
I said earlier, if you're doing no water changes in your tanks, it's just a matter of time before you're going to have a crash. That's my honest opinion. Nobody goes forever without doing water changes and doesn't have any issues. So if you want to breed, you want to be selling shrimp and stuff like that, 100% do your water changes. Don't just top off. And I mean, why are you going to even top off if you're not doing water changes? Why not just put a lid on the tank and never have to worry about it, make it an ecosphere? I mean, it's not doing your shrimp any good.
Thank you so much, Whips World, for the $2 super chat. Said nighty night, stay golden, fish fam. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Whip.
Look at that. We were actually like on time for that one. That's funny. I guess it is cheaper because less grid usage. And then Kenny asked, "You guys ever do that big boost or plants order yet?"
Yeah. You didn't hear me talk about it last time you asked the question. We did it. I don't want to talk about it. If you want to message me about it, it didn't come in the way we wanted to do the video, and I don't want to just rag on somebody's business. So.
Oh, from that specific.
Yeah.
I did do a TikTok on it though. You can see everything on the TikTok, but yeah. Sorry. I have to read it. It's gonna take me a second. I can only read some of that.
No, you're good.
Have a good night, Ginger. Father Fish says he goes 25 years without water change.
Yeah, but Father Fish isn't breeding anything, though. You know what I mean? He might have periods of fish that breed or do something like that, but Father Fish came over to the house and was like, yeah, for sure, you can't run an operation like this and not do water changes and set it up the way he has it. So
yeah, I just, especially if I'm breeding, I want my water to be at top quality so that if I was to take that shrimp, if it was in terrible quality, that water, everything's going to climb in that. You're not going to be able to keep there's just absolutely no way that you can't keep water change something 25 years. There's going to be something that accumulates in that tank, whether it's algae or nitrates or ammonia. Something is going to climb in the tank. You can't just have it perfectly balanced with no water changes. It's just not possible.
And just because Father Fish wasn't doing water changes doesn't mean he wasn't removing water and replacing it, because he was selling stuff out of all the tanks that he wasn't doing water changes. So when you grab a bag of water out of the tank,
you're still technically doing a water
you're eventually going to be replacing a little bit of water here and there. Our Opaula tank, I never do a water change in that tank. I just get enough sales that eventually the tank is almost to the sponge filter where I go, all right, time to make up another batch of brackish water and fill it back into the tank. So, I mean, yeah, there's ways.
Maybe for a little while, but not that long.
He also had very nice planted tanks, didn't overfeed and stuff like that. So, but there wasn't a lot of breeding going on.
Look at that. Aquatic Moose is working for an organic gourmet mushroom farm, lion's manes, oysters, and cordyceps. That is awesome because that's what we've been looking into. We were trying to get
A capsule that has enough lion's mane.
Yeah, well, not that. It's everything,
Yeah,
and it's
but-
not grounded up with other processes in it. But it's so expensive for them, so that's crazy that you work there.
No, we do not sell ghost shrimp. Ghost shrimp are almost all caught in the wild, and they're not very easy to breed. Caridina shrimp are 100 times easier to breed than ghost shrimp, and in the long run, they're going to look better and easier for you to use as feeders if that's what you're looking to breed shrimp for.
Stephen, he's in here. I'm late. He's funny. Welcome. Big Sherpa says, put shrimp in a tank that used to have fish that I used to feed blackworms. Now the substrate is getting overtaken by blackworms. Think blackworms will hurt baby shrimp? How to unalive the blackworms?
No, I honestly wouldn't worry about the blackworms too much. Eventually, the blackworms are going to die off.
Yeah.
So
Someone else has suggested turkey baster. If you want them out, if you don't like them, you could use a
They're not a
turkey baster to
problem.
pull them out and feed them to fish or something if you don't have it.
do the worm farm with the shrimp.
Stop. All right. I think we're up. If Abstract Aquarius says, if you cross different color Really shrimp, will you get wilds or the dominant color take over the tank?
You'll get wilds with the Neocaridina shrimp for sure. You'll get wilds, and the wilds won't even have the Really pattern. They're just going to be wild.
All right. Oh. And we caught up.
Awesome.
We did it. We did it. All right. Well, thank you. Must shake it till the end of the stream now. Thank you, everyone that's bared with us for this long stream, and hopefully we got some questions answered.
Y'all survived the flood. Y'all made it.
So
Call the stream the Ark from now on.
Oh look, they can send us some too. I'm gonna have to figure out how to cook some.
Email us at thegardenofeater@gmail.com.
For sure, we're looking into that. It's the new thing. But anyways, thank you everyone for watching. If you ever have any questions, do feel free to contact us. We really appreciate all supporting us. Any last words?
No, till next week. See you then. Have a good one.
Bye.